Incredible moment revealed, CEO's surprising response to little girl's touching struggle for food. Mia stood at the threshold of the bakery, her stomach rumbling in concert with the gnawing anxiety in her heart. The scent of freshly baked bread had always been her favorite, but today it felt like a cruel reminder of the food her family could no longer afford. Normally, the sweet sound of laughter and the chatter of neighbors would fill the place, but now it was shrouded in silence, amplifying her sense of invisibility. With each step inside, her courage began to crumble as she noticed the way the empty tables stared back at her, mirroring the fears that weighed heavily on her shoulders. Would she ever have enough to eat? Would her brother always have to bear the weight of her sacrifice? She had skipped breakfast again, but who needed meals when the unrelenting pressure of financial instability tightened its grip around her family? Just as despair threatened to engulf her, Jenna, the bakery's new CEO, strode in, exuding confidence in her neatly pressed blazer. Mia recognized her from the brief moments they had exchanged smiles. Jenna couldn't know the struggles prowling behind Mia's hopeful eyes. The girl hesitated. Should she retreat to the safety of the streets or summon the strength to speak up? But as Jenna approached with genuine curiosity, Mia felt the flicker of possibility igniting within her. "Hey there. What brings you here?" Jenna's voice was warm, cutting through Mia's swirling doubts. It wasn't pity but an invitation to share. Those few moments felt stretched, as Mia fumbled with her words. How could she reveal the weight she harbored? Yet, Jenna's steady gaze coaxed her, and the fears began pouring out of Mia like a dam bursting. The reality of her family's struggle emerged, a narrative stitched not only from hunger but also silence. My dad lost his job. It's just really hard, and sometimes I skip meals so my brother can eat. The admission hung in the air, laden with honesty and vulnerability. Mia braced herself for the swirl of sympathy she had grown accustomed to. But Jenna's eyes only grew sharper, filled with understanding rather than pity. "I understand what you're going through." Jenna leaned closer, a spark igniting between them. Their situations didn't just echo one another, they resonated. Jenna felt a long-buried passion for community beginning to bloom within her. Instead of creating a business based solely on profit, she considered how she could extend a lifeline to the struggling families around her. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." But just as hope began to bloom, swirling doubts clawed back at Jenna. What if her investors laughed at her ideas? What if they dismissed her as naive? Even as Mia stood before her, brimming with potential and warmth, Jenna could feel the tightening band of anxiety settling across her chest. The uncertainty loomed large like a storm cloud. Could she really make a difference in Mia's life? As Mia stepped back to assess Jenna's reaction, her own hope dimmed. With every passing breath, she battled inner turmoil, bracing for either disappointment or resolution. The bakery's silence echoed the gravity of their circumstances, and as Jenna prepared for the upcoming meeting, the question lingered in the air: would they recognize the value of compassion over bottom lines? With hope and anxiety tethered together, uncertainty loomed ever closer. Jenna stood behind the counter, her fingers brushing against the cool surface of the marble as her mind raced. Mia's words echoed in her ears, each syllable a reminder of the burden they both carried. The bakery felt like a crossroads, a pivotal moment where she could choose the path of an unyielding capitalist or one imbued with compassion. As her instincts screamed at her to play it safe, to follow the traditional route of maximizing profit, a new calling began to form. What if we did more? Jenna muttered to herself, hardly believing what she had just suggested. The other part of her, the one trained in the cutthroat world of corporate strategy, scoffed at the notion. But within her, the seeds of change were beginning to take root. Mia stood across from Jenna, looking visibly perplexed. Was she prepared to lean on someone else? Trust her aspirations to an unfamiliar adult? Jenna noticed the way the girl's apprehension mirrored her own turmoil. This could be a transformative moment, not just for Mia but for Jenna as well. It was an opportunity to redefine her values in a way that transcended the bottom line. Every month, I could offer a pay-what-you-can community day, Jenna continued, her voice steadying as she formulated the idea. She could see Mia's eyes widen in intrigue. I can offer pastries, bread, maybe even meals. We could create a space where people can come together, and if they need help, they can get it. Mia appeared to consider the idea deeply. Could these notions of kindness bridge the chasm of her struggles? Jenna watched as a flicker of hope ignited in Mia's expression, a spark that propelled Jenna to dive deeper into her own thoughts. What do you think? Would that help kids like you, help families? Jenna asked, holding Mia's gaze, seeking validation in the girl's calm vulnerability. Her heart raced, waiting for a response, but beneath the uncertainty lay a deeper desire. Mia was the very embodiment of the community she wanted to uplift, and as a leader, Jenna realized she wouldn't just be doing this for herself but for the sake of someone else's future. I think it could mean a lot, Mia finally said, her voice small but confident. A place where no one feels alone. It would be nice to feel like we belong. A wave of warmth washed over Jenna. The conversation had shifted from two troubled souls to a partnership brimming with potential. But with the excitement, an unsettling thought crept into her mind: her investors. Would they understand her vision or scorn it? Would they dismiss her ideas as mere charity, jeopardizing everything she had built? The weight of the world settled heavily on her shoulders as she prepared for the meeting. She envisioned the white table lined with corporate suits, their eyes cold and calculating, ready to dissect every thought she presented. No, she whispered to herself, squeezing her hands into fists. I can't back down now. Mia deserves better. Jenna inhaled a breath of determination and found herself mirror-imaging Mia's resolve. Theirs was no longer just a struggle. It was a mission, an awakening, and as she prepared for tomorrow's meeting, she knew she had to defend not just the bakery's future, but every life it could touch. As the bakery door swung shut behind Mia, frustration boiled within Jenna. What proof could she bring to demonstrate the value of compassion over profit to her investors? She needed to embody the change she craved, not simply for Mia but for all. The clock ticked menacingly in the background as Jenna resolved to take a stand. The time had come to confront not just the challenges, but those who would challenge her vision. Jenna stared at herself in the mirror above the sink, each inhale deepening the furrow in her brow. The wall clock ticked steadily, a reminder of the seconds that slipped away with each moment of doubt. She had crafted a plan, and yet fear clung to her like the scent of freshly baked bread, warm yet suffocating. The reflection looking back at her felt foreign. Where had the strategic, power-driven businesswoman gone? She closed her eyes tightly, summoning the words she would articulate in the face of investors who had feasted on her past achievements. Their praise had always been superficial, often accompanied by their desire for greater profits. How could she bridge the chasm between that vision and her new, fragile hope? In her mind's eye, Jenna replayed the conversation with Mia, the girl's earnest expression igniting something within her that she thought had long been extinguished. A soft voice pierced the silence, coaxing her out of her reverie. You're not doing this for them, you're doing it for you, for Mia, and for everyone you can help. Taking a deep breath, Jenna's resolve solidified. Her organizational instincts kicked into high gear. She grabbed a notebook and began jotting down bullet points, structuring her ideas with precision. Pay What You Can was not merely an act of charity, it was a sustainable business strategy that could redefine the bakery's brand. Building community trust and loyalty might trump short-term profits. Perhaps this unorthodox model would attract attention, a narrative that would draw even skeptical investors into her orbit. As Jenna scribbled, the ideas flowed with a frenetic energy. She could create marketing campaigns highlighting the stories of those who benefited from community days. Collaborations with local artists and musicians could transform the bakery into a vibrant hub and spark interest beyond the traditional consumer base. That exhilarating wave soon ebbed, leaving behind an unsettling emptiness. What if her ideas fell flat? Would she fall back into the old patterns of her profession? The whispers of self-doubt flared up again. She snapped the notebook shut, and her heart raced. As she moved away from the bathroom mirror, her gaze caught the baking supplies scattered around the kitchen. They were not just tools, they represented her passion and the culinary legacy she had built. Memories flooded back, the excitement of experimenting with new flavors, the satisfaction of creating something beautiful and delicious. Suddenly, the absurdity of her hesitation became clear. Jenna had the skills she needed to succeed. She remembered the warmth in Mia's eyes when they spoke about belonging. If her passion had the potential to become a lifeline for those like Mia, wasn't it worth the risk? With renewed vigor, Jenna began planning her speech for the investors, not as a plea for support, but as a bold proposal to join her in crafting a more humane business model. Outlining the potential community impacts could shift the narrative away from mere finance. Yet, beneath this surge of emotions, uncertainty gnawed at her. What if they questioned her competence? Would they still see her as their adept strategist, or would she be reduced to an idealist looking for validation? Jenna paced, her mind racing through potential questions. The reality of her confrontation with the investors loomed larger. She found herself staring at the bakery's door, imagining the moment when she would first lay bare her vision. As the day of reckoning approached, she knew this moment would not just determine the bakery's financial future, it would also forge her identity anew. A blend of apprehension and anticipation coursed through her. The gravity of her choice weighed on her, the moment to face those who would challenge her vision had come. Could Jenna wield her newfound purpose against the cold logic of her investors? With a determined breath, Jenna picked up her phone, fingers poised over the screen ready to make a call that could validate this path, or crush it before it began. The invitation to collaborate with another local nonprofit loomed in her email. What if this became the bridge she needed? She questioned whether the time had truly come to dismantle her old identity and be reborn into something authentic. Jenna's heart raced as she considered her next move, knowing that the transformation of her bakery, and ultimately, herself, was only beginning. Jenna stared at her phone, the screen glowing with the invitation to collaborate. For a brief moment, her heart danced with the thrill of potential. Could this partnership offer the affirmation she desperately sought? Or was it merely another distraction, a way to defer the inevitable confrontation with the investors? She laid the phone back on the counter, her heart heavy with questions. The upcoming investors' meeting loomed like a storm cloud, dark, ominous, and charged with energy, waiting to release its downpour. She recalled the faces of those who questioned her vision before, their skepticism glaring against the brilliance of her ideas. But this time would be different. She would approach the conversation from a place of authenticity, unashamed of her new purpose. The bakery was more than a business to her now, it was the heart of a community she wanted to foster, a sanctuary for those who felt lost. When Mia spoke, it was as if a dam had broken inside her, releasing a torrent of hope and self-awareness. But could she convey that to her investors? Could they see the value in humanity and compassion instead of pure profit? Jenna's resolve firmed as she pulled out her notebook again. The pages were filled with possibilities, ideas, projections, heartfelt pitches. She began refining her proposals into a narrative that wove together personal anecdotes and potential impact. Each stroke of her pen was imbued with urgency, determination spilling forth as if she were coaxing life into her heart's vision. The sun streamed through the windows, warming her skin, and for a moment, everything felt right. With each passing moment, her determination crystallized. It was crucial for her to showcase how the pay what you can model could attract a diverse customer base, families, artists, students, people who would find solace and connection in her bakery's offerings. But as the excitement built, the shadows of doubt crept in again. What if her approach was too radical? What if the investors mocked her for veering off the traditional path? She felt an internal tug-of-war, a battle between the remnants of her old self and the woman she aspired to become. Deciding to shift her focus, Jenna recalled the voices she'd heard in the bakery, the laughter, the conversations, the shared stories. Each time a customer chose the pay-what-you-can option, it reaffirmed her belief that community could thrive in an economic system that often felt exclusive. Each bell that rang as the door swung open echoed the stories of resilience and hope. That was her leverage. Taking a sip from her cooling coffee, Jenna imagined the investors sitting across the table, smug and calculating. She grappled with the fear that her passion couldn't compete with the hard statistics they valued. Yet, another thought emerged: wasn't this fear just an old narrative she clung to? As a businesswoman who had thrived in high-pressure environments, she had managed to navigate negotiations and high-stakes discussions. What was it within her that had cowered in anticipation of rejection? Was it a lesson from the past, a moment where ambition had been stifled by fear? Her mind drifted back to the bakery and everything it symbolized: the legacy she would leave, the lives she could touch. The pivotal recognition struck her: she had the power to create change not just for herself, but for others. With her heart pounding, Jenna realized she had to step forward, to own her vision with confidence. Discarding her earlier apprehensions, she pulled her notebook closer and began crafting sentences that resonated with her true self. There was no point in disguising her intentions. This was her moment to be vulnerable yet strong, to demand a seat at the table not as an underdog but as a leader ready to pave new paths. Her phone chimed, an email notification pulled her attention. It was a message confirming the time for her meeting. The certainty of her agenda now fueled her purpose. Jenna paused, inhaling deeply as she prepared to respond to the email inviting collaborative conversations with the nonprofit and affirming the path she would take for the bakery. But just as she began typing, a sense of foreboding grabbed her. What if the reality of this meeting shattered her dreams, leaving her adrift again? The stakes were higher than ever. She was not simply defending a business model but was embracing the essence of her newfound identity. The moment had arrived to prove that her dreams were worth the gamble. In that charged moment, Jenna hit send, steeling herself for the confrontation ahead. The future lay before her, uncertain yet shimmering with promise. Could she truly reveal her aspirations without losing herself in the process? With adrenaline coursing through her, she stood, ready to face her destiny. Would the investors be willing to see the value in heart-driven endeavor over cold, hard returns? As Jenna prepared to step into that pivotal meeting, she couldn't shake the feeling that what awaited her was far more profound than anticipated. Jenna arrived at the meeting room, its stark walls and polished wood table revealing nothing of the chaos within. She took a deep breath, feeling the oxygen race through her, and reminded herself that this was no ordinary pitch. This was her moment to challenge the status quo. Her heart pounded, a steady beat echoing against the quiet of the room. As the investors filed in, Jenna regarded each one with a critical eye. Their suits were immaculate, an external display mirroring their methods of operations imposing and clinical. Yet, she had previously studied their patterns. Beyond those sharp exteriors lay shallow understandings of community and connection, and this time, she planned to uncover what lay beneath their polished surfaces. With every handshake, she felt the weight of their expectations pressing in on her. There was Peter, interested in numbers more than narratives, Lisa, known for her shrewd assessments, and Marcus, who often leaned into traditional transaction-based models. All were weighing her worth in profit margins and spreadsheets. But Jenna was here to present more. "Thank you for meeting with me today," Jenna began, her voice steadier than she expected. She placed a frame around her vision with deliberate care, introducing her bakery's mission and the innovative pay-what-you-can approach. The energy shifted as she recounted the stories of customers who had found warmth and nourishment not only in her pastries but in the very act of belonging. She painted vivid pictures of lively mornings, laughter shared over coffee, and heartfelt conversations just beyond the pastries. At first, the investors sat with crossed arms, their skepticism hanging in the air like dense fog. Jenna, however, pushed through the doubts, feeling her own conviction strengthen. Each emotional anecdote seemed to ignite a flicker of surprise or curiosity in their eyes, and she seized the moment to deepen the conversation. Imagine a family that never thought they could afford fresh bread, she ventured, but they walk in, and instead of feeling ashamed, they experience compassion and warmth. Lisa interjected, her tone sharp. "That's lovely, Jenna, but how does this translate to profitability? Nurturing stories don't balance the books." The question ricocheted inside Jenna's mind. Was it naive to dare dream in a world ruled by numbers? Yet, in that instant, clarity glimmered like a beacon. She had prepared for this. "If I may, I believe there's value in those stories that extends beyond pure profit," she replied, surprised by her own assertiveness. The sentimental attachment and customer loyalty this model cultivates can lead to community-driven engagement. You position your business as more than an exchange, you create a space for human connection. Their expressions shifted momentarily, the ice thawing as they engaged with her vision rather than dismissing it. Peter leaned forward slightly, intrigued. Continue, he urged, prompting her to dive deeper into the potential ramifications of her business model. As Jenna spoke, she noticed sparks of acknowledgement flickering in their eyes, punctuated by the nods of curiosity. She had shattered the initial barriers with authenticity and unleashed the true essence of her bakery's impact. But she was also aware that she needed to prepare for the inevitable counterarguments, and there they were, tumbling out of Marcus's mouth like a calculated barrage. But your model risks an unstable revenue stream. What's your plan for sustaining operations in the lean months? The challenge was valid, the concern echoed the fears that had lingered in Jenna's own mind. Yet, she felt a rush of adrenaline coursing through her veins. Every innovative endeavor carries risks, she countered, her voice stronger now. But the uncertainty is part of creating something that matters. Our financial support can come from corporate sponsorships that align with our values, while the community works together to uphold and flourish this initiative. A tense silence filled the room as each investor mulled over her words. Jenna saw the exchanges of glances between them, hesitations highlighted by sparks of intrigue. It was the beginning of an internal shift. As Jenna concluded her presentation, she felt an unexpected burst of confidence. The tables had shifted. This was not just a matter of convincing investors, it was a chance to forge pathways toward enduring change. But doubt lingered. What would this mean for her business if they refused to grasp her vision? The tension in the room was palpable, every moment stretching her resolve like thin elastic. Waiting for their response, Jenna clenched her fists beneath the table, grappling with the question that hung heavy in the air. Could she truly maneuver through this labyrinth of skepticism to emerge unscathed? Just as she contemplated her next move, Marcus leaned back, looking at her with a mix of contemplation and determination. We need to discuss this further. You've certainly given us a lot to think about. The opening had presented itself, but the battle was far from over. Jenna took a deep breath, heart racing. Had she done enough to secure their support or simply opened the door to further scrutiny? She stood on the precipice of triumph and turmoil, and only time would reveal which side she would fall on. The following days felt like an endless cycle of anticipation and dread for Jenna. Emails flew back and forth as the investors deliberated over her pitch. The initial glimmer of hope began to fade into the mundanity of uncertainty. On every page of her daily planner, the words investor response repeated like a looming specter. Could she truly escape the relentless grip of doubt? One afternoon, inspired by her mission, Jenna decided to revisit the bakery. The scent of freshly baked bread enveloped her, grounding her in the purpose that had driven her to this moment. She had spent countless nights crafting pastries, experimenting with flavors that sparked joy among her customers. The kitchen pulsed with life, mixing bowls cluttered the countertops, flowers settled in soft clouds, and the oven hummed with the promise of warmth. But today, there was an unsettling thread in the tapestry of her thoughts. It was not just about profits anymore, it was about proving that she could be taken seriously in a world that oftentimes dismissed the very essence of her dream. Jenna reached out to her small team, their faces a mix of excitement and anxiety. As they prepared a fresh batch of blueberry muffins, she couldn't help but voice the anxiety brewing inside her. What if they decide this Model 1T work? She questioned, her voice barely disguising the tremor of doubt. Rachel, her assistant and ally, caught her gaze. But what if they see the heart of it, Jenna? The community you're building? The words hung heavily in the air. Jenna nodded, feeling an inkling of determination stir within her. She stepped into the back room, where the organization's ideas had conceptually unfolded. Memories flooded her with the stories of customers who had found solace and understanding in her little bakery. Could that be enough? Suddenly, the bells on the bakery door chimed. A little girl, no older than 8, stood wide-eyed before the counter. Her clothes were tattered, yet a brilliant smile brightened her face as she pointed to a cupcake adorned with colorful sprinkles. Jenna felt a familiar tug at her heartstrings. The girl hesitated, glancing back at an older woman lingering outside, clearly worried. Jenna approached gently. "Would you like a cupcake?" The girl's eyes widened, a spark of hope igniting within. "But I don't have any money." The woman shifted anxiously, clearly concerned. "Today, you can have it on the pay what you can plan," Jenna said softly. The girl's expression melted into gratitude, and she nodded eagerly. As the girl took the cupcake, Jenna's heart swelled with renewed conviction. This was not merely about words or profits. This was about connection and kindness, elements that should entwine in business, not be discarded in the pursuit of profit margins. The experience layered a deeper understanding in Jenna. She could embody the risk, the vision, and the community. She didn't have to sacrifice any part of it. Returning to her team, she felt a change. "We need to gather more stories, real stories of those we've touched. I want them to see what we're really creating here." Rachel's eyes brightened in agreement, and suddenly the bakery erupted into a flurry of activity. They set to work, writing down powerful testimonials, capturing video clips of moments that reflected the essence of her mission. As Jenna poured her heart into every detail, a stirring thought had planted itself firmly within her. She had uncovered a hidden strength through the struggle. This endeavor was more than a business, it was an extension of her values, a testament to the meaning behind every pastry. But the lingering tension never fully dissipated. They pressed hard to complete their campaign, aware that their next steps would determine everything. Jenna's excitement teetered on the edge of anxiety. Were they ready for the backlash? As the tides gathered momentum, a final wave crashed down. The investors were making their decision at last. That night, she lay awake, wrestling with the anticipation of their verdict. Would they embrace the empathy she was offering, or dismiss it outright? She needed to prepare herself for either outcome, firmly resolving that she would not retreat. This was her moment to truly embrace who she was. The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds, illuminating her determined expression. With her heart pounding, she grabbed her phone. The email was in her inbox, sitting in silence like a live grenade. Taking a deep breath, Jenna opened it, bracing herself for a fate that would forever change her path. The screen lit up, and Jenna's breath caught in her throat. She scanned the email, her heart racing as she tried to decipher the words. A fortune could reside within this response, a potential partnership that could launch her bakery into the next realm, but the very thought made her stomach churn with apprehension. Would they resonate with her story? Finally, she found the nerve to read the concluding remarks. Words flowed like honey, albeit bittersweet. The investors were not ready to come on board, not strictly because of her concept, but primarily due to concerns over profitability. "We commend your passion and the project's community-oriented intention," they wrote, "but our current forecast does not indicate sustainable growth for your proposed model." The weight of failure crushed her in that moment. Over the years, Jenna had immersed herself in the essence of her bakery, putting love and tenacity into every creation. Yet, the industry was not just a playground for dreams, it was a battleground governed by numbers and projections. As she read and reread the email, disappointment morphed into something far sharper, indignation. How could they dismiss her vision? How could they overlook the strong community connections she had cultivated? Despite her pain, a flame of defiance flickered to life within her. Maybe she was expected to conform to their rigid standards, but what if she took a different path? Determined, Jenna slid her phone across the table, wanting the rejection to dissolve into the surrounding air. Facing Rachel, Jenna took a deep dive into the recesses of her thoughts. What if we don't need them? Rachel looked puzzled, eyebrows furrowing. We've built this from scratch. There must be another way to gather support without relying on investors who don't understand our heart. Jenna's voice bore a newfound fervor, the weight of rejection morphing into resolve. The realization struck Jenna with astonishing clarity. She had overlooked her most potent ally in the unfolding narrative, her customers. She needed to renegotiate the conversation, engage with the bakery goers who had rallied around her endeavors. This was a chance to tap into the heartbeat of her community, a chance to show that the essence of what she built could somehow ripple outward. Jenna jumped into action, brainstorming unconventional fundraising ideas with Rachel. Could they initiate a crowdfunding campaign or rally local businesses for sponsorships? The ideas flowed like batter from a whisk, expanding into conversations in the bakery itself. They spent the next days reaching out to regulars, the couples who shared pastries over morning coffee, the students who crammed for exams amidst the aroma of fresh muffins, and families who gathered for cupcakes on special occasions. Jenna felt invigorated as the stories rolled in, voices of enthusiasm igniting her passion. Empowered, she decided to host a community bake-off, charging a small fee for participants while inviting guests to taste and vote for their favorite treats. Tangible connections over dessert morphing into a binding force. The event would not only raise funds but deepen the relationships that made her bakery a beloved entity. Days turned into a whirlwind of excitement as the event date approached. Jenna planned every detail meticulously. Banners adorned the bakery, and music was cued to fill the air with palpable joy. Yet, amid the excitement, tension bubbled. Could this reinterpretation of her vision truly resonate? Was she risking further embarrassment? Standing at the counter, ready to welcome the influx of participants, Jenna felt the gravity of her choices. She had sentenced herself to a path stripped of the familiar shield of investors, and now it was up to her. Her creativity and courage were the only currency she had left. As crowds began to fill the bakery, she felt the loving anticipation. Would this new approach thrive? Could she carve her own niche without bending to the narratives of investors? The heat of the oven, the laughter of guests, all converged to hold her in place. Teetering on the brink of success or failure. Tonight, she'd get answers that couldn't just be written into an email. Would this endeavor ignite a new chapter, or lead to another dead end? The cacophony of laughter and chatter enveloped Jenna as she stood behind the counter, her heart dancing between elation and anxiety. The bakery was alive, a vivid tapestry of faces familiar and new, each an echo of her journey. She glanced around, taking in the bright decorations, a swirl of colors that mirrored her emotions. Each banner she hung in anticipation now seemed an invitation to destiny. Yet as the crowd grew thicker, Jenna cradled a gnawing doubt. Had she truly anticipated the demands of this gathering? It was no longer just about baking, it had become a test of her resolve, of her vision. Sense memories surged through her, late nights kneading dough, the warmth of the oven, the scent of cinnamon weaving through her days. But tonight was different. This was a gamble with someone else's expectation at stake. Rachel returned from the crowd, arms laden with freshly baked goods. The sight of her friend's exuberance calmed Jenna slightly. "They love it," she exclaimed, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "You should see the way they're lining up to enter." Jenna nodded but felt the nagging whisper of insecurity creep in. What if they don't like it? What if we fail? Failure? This isn't about failure. It's about community, support, and showing them what we can do together. Rachel's words wrapped around her like a warm blanket, yet Jenna couldn't shake the burden of feeling she needed to prove herself. As participants filtered in to register for the bake-off, Jenna's mind raced. What if the recipes didn't resonate? What if the excitement they had generated didn't translate into actual engagement? She had put everything on the line, and now, staring into the eyes of her supporters, it felt like all eyes were on her, assessing her every move. Taking a deep breath, Jenna approached a table near the front where a young girl was examining the cone of brownies and cookies on display. "What do you think?" she asked, her voice steady despite the internal turmoil. The girl's response was immediate, a bright smile illuminating her face. "They look amazing. I think my mom will love them." Her enthusiasm melted some of the anxiety holding Jenna captive. But the moment slipped into uncertainty again as she spotted a familiar face in the crowd, her former investor, Tom. His presence was an invasive reminder of doubts she thought she'd pushed aside. What was he doing here? Would he critique her approach? Questions spiraled in her head, weighing down her spirit. Through the event, Jenna pushed herself to connect with the guests who shared their stories and experiences. Each response filled her with renewed energy, a flicker of hope. Yet, every time she retreated behind the counter, the tension mounted. She would need to speak, not just to connect but to solidify the community aspect she had aimed to enhance. Then, amidst the jubilant chaos, a sudden shout broke through. "Look at my cake!" A boy waved his creation, pale blue icing dripping at the edges, and Jenna couldn't help but smile. A feeling of pride swelled within her, a realization. The focus no longer lay on her bakery but on the shared experiences unfolding around her. As the afternoon merged into evening, the bake-off commenced with laughter thriving around her. Yet as she prepared to speak, nerves returned to sabotage her confidence. Could she articulate the emergence this event represented? Jenna cleared her throat, taking a step onto the makeshift stage adorned with flour-dusted tablecloths. The crowd quieted, eyes turned towards her not as judges, not as investors, but as friends and patrons. The conflation of fear and expectation gripped her tightly. This moment could spiral into triumph or catastrophe. She felt the stakes shift, pressing against her chest until she seized the microphone, ready to unveil not just a celebration, but a spirited declaration of her purpose. And then she paused, her heart thumping heavily. A breath caught in her throat because she realized she needed to face her own vulnerabilities, to expose the depths of her soul. Would they connect with her genuine journey, or would doubt overshadow the serum of belief she had cultivated in each of her recipes? Tonight would show her if they could embrace her truth or if the very community she aspired to engage remained just a collection of disparate souls. Jenna gripped the microphone tighter, her palms slick with sweat. She gazed out at the faces looking back at her, some masked in curiosity, others with intention, and a few radiating sheer joy. In that instant, she was encapsulated by a mixture of vulnerability and determination. This was her moment to shift the narrative, to transform it from self-doubt into a beacon of shared experiences. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice steadying as resolve filled her chest. "This is more than just a bake-off. It's about our stories, our connections, and the warmth that baking can bring into our lives, especially during difficult times." A flicker of recognition crossed the crowd. Jenna noticed a few nodding, hearts softened by her simple truths. Encouraged, she pressed on, allowing an authenticity to seep into her speech. "In my journey, I've faced challenges that felt insurmountable. But it is in these moments, kneading dough late at night or perfecting a recipe, that I discovered my passion is not just about creating food, it is about creating community." The words began to flow more freely, and she embraced the role of storyteller, recounting the moments that had shaped her path to this point. Each story revealed another layer of her resilience, from her first failed cake to the supportive emails she had received from customers during her struggles. She made eye contact, engaging individuals directly, feeling the connection pulse through the room. It was almost tangible, a collective heartbeat uniting them. As Jenna spoke, she noticed Rachel at the edge of the crowd, beaming with pride and supporting other bakers who had begun to mingle, exchanging ideas. It dawned on her that this gathering represented something larger than herself. It was a mosaic of aspirations, failures, and triumphs shaped by the simple act of sharing food. Then she turned to Tom, who stood watching intently, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Memories of their strained relationship flooded back, marking him as a reminder of the stakes involved. The words stuck in her throat for a moment. Would he appreciate her growth, or would he critique her authenticity? Suddenly, the voice of a tiny girl cut through her thoughts. "Can I share my story too?" The girl Jenna had spoken to earlier tugged at her sleeve, her cake creation in hand. The innocence of her question cracked through the tension that held Jenna captive. "Of course. What is your story?" Jenna asked, stepping down from the podium, drawn to the girl's spirit. "I made this cake for my mommy, but I wanted to make it special because she works hard," the girl beamed, her smile brightening the room. "Will you help me make a bigger one someday?" A tide of emotion rolled through Jenna, overwhelming her momentarily. She realized this was not just about her struggles as a business owner but about the impact she could have on others. "Absolutely," she replied, her voice imbued with hope. "Together, we can make something beautiful." The applause that erupted was not merely for her words but for the resonance of shared dreams. In that instant, Jenna confronted a moment of reckoning. It was no longer about proving herself against expectations, but about cultivating a space for others to feel seen and valued. As the noise settled, Jenna returned to her original position, heart racing and mind buzzing with ideas. She felt empowered not just as a baker, but as a catalyst for change within her community. Her resolve crystallized. She couldn't give in to her insecurities, she was stronger than her doubts. With her newfound clarity, she knew it was time to build upon this foundation. Fostering creativity among budding bakers, supporting initiatives to teach baking to others, perhaps even launching a community cookbook, it was all possible now. Yet the thought of Tom lingered, simmering beneath the excitement. Why was he still here? How would he react to her evolution? With the crowd buzzing around her, Jenna felt a surge of ambition coursing through her veins. She was ready to create, to inspire, and to confront her challenges head-on. When the evening sky darkened and the last guests trickled out, she caught Tom's eye once more, resolved to discover what he had come to see. Would he applaud her journey or shake her conviction? The moment of truth was approaching, and Jenna couldn't ignore the anxiety swelling within her. Jenna took her time, gathering the courage that had been fanning the flames of her resolve throughout the evening. As the last bit of laughter and chatter faded into the backdrop of the bustling bakery, she approached Tom, aware that this encounter had the potential to either cement her newfound purpose or cast a shadow over her aspirations. "Tom," she greeted, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts rushing through her mind. "I didn't expect to see you here." His expression remained neutral, making it impossible for her to gauge his thoughts. "I wanted to see what you were doing," he replied simply, his tone guarded. "You always had a unique vision, and I wanted to know if it was more than just ideas." His words hung between them like an unsolved puzzle. Jenna seized the moment, diving deep into her newfound identity. It has to be more than ideas. It's about connection and nurturing a sense of belonging. This bake-off wasn't just an event, it was a way to understand and uplift our community. "I've realized that I can't just operate a business for profit, I want to contribute meaningfully to people's lives." Tom's eyes narrowed slightly as he considered her words. "That sounds ambitious, Jenna. But how do you plan to sustain it? What if this turns into mere charity? Are people actually willing to pay for that?" The challenge fueled her determination. "What we're doing isn't charity, it's redefining our relationship with food and community. It's about building trust and loyalty. Memories are created over shared meals, and those experiences are priceless. People want to connect with something deeper, they're looking for more than the transactional model we've been fed." Gradually, Jenna noticed the shift in Tom's posture, a loosening of apprehension. He leaned in, intrigued. "So you think they will invest not just money, but their time and care?" "Absolutely. We've already seen it happen tonight. Families are sharing more than just recipes, they're exchanging stories and laughter. They want to see this bakery thrive. I have plans to involve the community further, workshops, collaborative projects, and even a community cookbook. The possibilities are endless." Tom nodded, his expression softening. "It sounds like a lot of work. But also it sounds viable if executed well." A sense of triumph bloomed within Jenna. She was engaging him not through numbers but through stories, the ones that made her dream palpable. "That's just it, Tom. I'm ready to show people that empathy isn't a weakness, it's what's missing in our industry. And if I can prove that our community backs this vision, then I can approach investors on my terms." His brow furrowed as he mulled over her words. "What's the first step?" "I need to rally my customers, build this idea together, and create a momentum that can't be ignored. When they see the community coming together, supporting each other, investing in each other's dreams, that's when the shift will happen. I want to host more events, workshops, making the bakery a nurturing hub for creativity and warmth." Tom regarded her thoughtfully, and for the first time, Jenna saw respect glowing in his expression. "You know what? I think you might be onto something. If you really want to embark on this journey, I'd be willing to offer guidance. Just trust your instincts. You know your customers better than anyone." With newfound clarity, Jenna felt the weight of uncertainty lifting. The acknowledgement from Tom was more than just validation, it was a confirmation of her growth and transformation. She could envision herself moving forward, not as an underdog, but as a leader, forging her path with resilience and community spirit. As they finalized the details of her ambitious plans, Jenna experienced a profound sense of accomplishment. No longer was she defined by fear or doubt. She stood solidly at the forefront of her bakery, equipped with clarity and the will to advocate for her vision. Looking around, Jenna felt the warm echoes of laughter and shared stories resonate within the walls of the bakery, each sound a testament to what she had created. This wasn't just a bakery anymore, it had transformed into a sanctuary. In that moment, Jenna resolved to harness this momentum, channeling it not just into profitable ventures, but into meaningful work that created real impact. She was ready to embrace the adventure ahead, with that same little girl's innocent smile etched in her memory, a reminder of why she began this journey. Jenna stepped away from their conversation, a wave of gratitude washing over her. Her path was now illuminated, and she was eager to embrace every challenge and opportunity that awaited her. And just like that, everything shifted. Jenna had achieved a pivotal transformation, fully embodying her role not just as a businesswoman but as a beacon of compassion and innovation. She had proven her capability, unveiling the potential for real change while remaining true to herself and her community. Now was the time to step forward boldly and let her voice resonate, to invite others on this journey directly into her flourishing new world. This was who she was meant to be. The next chapter awaited, and Jenna was ready. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.